Hello, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. Hey, B. Hello, welcome, welcome, welcome. Hello, Shelley. Welcome, welcome to today. How are you guys doing? It's a big question. There's a lot of stuff going on in the world. Now, hello, Annie. How are you? It's good to see you guys. It's good to see everyone. Starting out with a big sigh today. Yeah, okay is an okay place to be, Shelley. Um, it's yeah, trying to navigate dark clouds. I hear you, Annie. Yeah, navigating. That's a good way of looking at things. B, taking a break from unpacking to join everyone. I really appreciate that, B. Hope you're enjoying your new place. How is it? Having to move during a time like this. I mean, it's stressful in the best of times, but certain layers get added on. Hello, Courtney. Welcome. How are you doing? Good to see you or know that you're there. Now, generally, you know what? Keep saying hello to folks and welcoming people as they arrive. Um, but for those who might be watching without joining the chat, for those folks who might be joining us for the first time, I just want to remind everyone that you're welcome here. This is what we call a pop-up virtual art studio. So at the living room, everyone who comes to the studio, we give them the spiel. Some of you will be very, very familiar with this, so if you want to say it along with me at home, feel free. But we welcome everyone to this space that we've created virtually. We believe that you are an artist and you are, well, we invite you, encourage you to make whatever kind of art you want or need to make today in the space using any of the materials you might have on hand. I wish I could be in everyone's, well, that's a weird thing to say, in everyone's homes. I wish I could provide supplies for everyone to create with. But I think if we look around, there's always something that we can use to make art. So if you've got a pen, if you've got a pencil, if you've got a scrap of paper, a piece of newspaper, if you've got some coffee, you can paint with coffee, folks, and tea. Why not? Give it a go. There's lots of different things we can do to create, and this is a time where we give permission just to connect and create alongside one another. I'll be doing something here today. I don't know quite exactly what I'll be doing. If you want to join me, if you have the materials that I have or something similar, feel free to experiment and explore the theme that I'm playing with. If not, do your own thing. This is a safe space, so when we talk about it being a safe space, I suppose what we really mean is an accountable space. So I suppose in essence, one way of describing that is we've all got to be prepared to pay for what our mouths buy, answer questions, be open to communicating with one another and helping others understand where we might be coming from, and also really doing deep listening to understand where others might be coming from who we may not have met before. We do ask if folks have been using or drinking that they take a break from the Hive today and come back on another day when they haven't been. There's no judgment there. There are a lot of folks who use this space for recovery or harm reduction, so it can just be nice to take a break from stuff, to not have to deal with it or worry about dealing with it. On another note, it's really about communication as well. It's important for us to know that we can communicate as effectively as we can with folks who are here. Sometimes when folks are in an altered state due to substances, it's difficult to know where they're coming from and if we're understanding one another. So again, no judgment. The last and final thing, if anything happens in this space that makes you feel uncomfortable or weird or just not good, lovely. I love the conversation that's happening. Oh, yeah, lovely. I'll check in with folks in a second. Um, if anything happens in this space that makes you feel uncomfortable, I would invite you to let me know, so that we can do what we can to make sure that doesn't happen again, or to have those lovely, awkward conversations with one another to create a more safe and supportive space for everyone. And I don't mind having awkward conversations. I'm accountable too. So if there are things that I say or do that I need to be schooled on, please let me know. The other piece there is that sometimes it's not about feeling uncomfortable as in the way that someone might be worried that someone might be intentionally trying to make you feel uncomfortable, but sometimes conversations might happen here full of interesting stuff, heavy stuff, complicated stuff. And there are days when we can enter into those conversations or listen to those conversations wholeheartedly. And there are some days where it just might be too much for us. So please, please take care of yourself, right? There's no judgment if you want to dip in and out of this virtual art hive. If you want to stay for 5 minutes and make art with us or not make art, if you want to stay for the whole hour and a half, that's okay too. If you just want to have us on in the background while you do something completely different and unrelated to art, that's all right too. There's still a creative energy there in being present with one another. That's really important. You do what feels right for you. I invite everyone to do that because there are a lot of complicated conversations happening in the world right now. There are a lot of intense things that we're witnessing and reflecting on and thinking about. There's also a lot to honor and celebrate. So we'll be mindful of that as well today. So, hey, let me check in with some of the conversations. Dawn. Okay, I'll work backwards, folks. I'll work backwards. Dawn, so good to see you here. I'm so glad you could join us today. I'm excited to see what you've been working on as well. Perhaps there'll be an opportunity to share some music. I hear Facebook Live might be introducing a live with component. And as soon as that happens, we'll be able to do some live streams with guests, similar to what we've been doing on Instagram. But there'll be opportunities to share work and, share our creativity in a slightly different way. I got some ideas for that. And B, again, is there. Thank you for being there. B is a volunteer at our studio, and almost everyone who's been a regular at the studio has a sense of, in one way or another, everyone's a volunteer after a while, because we learn the value in being a resource to one another and doing our best to look out for one another. Again, we do our best. We're human, but we do our best. And Jessica, oh my goodness. Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad you're making art and you're using videos, so YouTube videos. Interesting. If you have any that you'd like to share that you've been enjoying, please do. Just put them in the comments and then we can share them with one another. And just revisiting the volunteer thing, I got off track. It's been that kind of week. There are certain people here, like B is one of those people. If you do have questions or if you'd like to, there are people here who are willing and able to help you and chat in case I might miss them, because I don't always see who's joining in the live stream at all times. So I encourage everyone to say hello to one another and welcome one another to this virtual space. And Courtney's interested. She's like, yes, bring on the questions. Interesting. So Courtney, there's an open heart and an open mind there too, someone willing to discuss and engage. Yeah, struggling. I hear you, Courtney. It's there's a lot of struggle going on in the world, and I think it's an interesting thing we have an opportunity to reflect upon our own struggles and the privilege that comes with what struggles we might have in an interesting way. There's a lot going on, but I'm glad to hear and see that you're hanging in there and you're still connecting. That's an important thing too. Like Dawn being here. That's amazing. I'm so glad you're here. Okay. Yeah. I love that, B. B says, it's so important to build our community by being present and accountable and compassionate. Those pieces, I think, are so important. I think it's really, really easy to forget that they share space with one another and they're made stronger by one another. It's not just about being compassionate, it's about being accountable as well. It's about being present, which is not easy. Not easy at all. Nikki, oh, I'm so happy. I'm so happy to see you again, Nikki. Welcome, 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 Nicole. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Or Nicole, Nikki. Oh, well, is this your first time joining one of the live streams, Nikki? I thought for a second you were another. I know another Nicole. I know a Nikki Hen. So there are many Nikki's in the world to me right now. But it's good to see you here. Thank you for being here. And again, I'll be throughout this time taking time to kind of catch up and maybe welcome people who might be their first time here, or they're just tuning in from another space. Nikki is one of our new students joining us on placement, one of our new amazing students. We're so happy to have these students here. And what an interesting time to come on placement with the living room when we don't actually have a physical community to connect with. So I want everyone, what can I do? What can I say without spoiling too much? What I can say is that we have a lot of really, really interesting and cool kind of virtual engagement things coming up for everyone. Some new groups, some new online workshops. We're doing the best that we can to figure out ways of maintaining these relationships with one another and to strengthen them and making space for new relationships to happen, which can be hard when the only way that can happen is virtually. So students like Nikki are coming on board and just upping our game, really. Keeping us, like all that wonderful thing, keeping us accountable, keeping us considering, active, dynamic. Oh, Nikki. Nikki. Hi, Nikki. There's another Nikki. So if I just keep saying people's names, Nikki Patel, it's nice to see you. It's so good to see you, Nikki. Yeah, interesting times. For the new people who've joined us, how are you doing? How's Nikki doing? How's Nikki Patel doing? I hope you guys are as, well, I don't know. I think safe is one of the bywords we've been using, but that shouldn't be the way we check in with one another. It's strange that it's become the thing. Are you safe? Are you feeling safe? But it's an important thing. Yeah. So when I was coming into this today, trying to think of what the heck to create, and sometimes I don't know before I get here. I really try to allow myself to move with what's moving, to let myself be guided by what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking about. And to tell you the truth, there was a point today where I wasn't quite sure. Hello, Jeffrey. Oh, wow. Welcome, Jeffrey. It's so good to see you. How are you doing? Wow. There was a point today where yesterday, as a matter of fact, I wasn't quite sure if I should be holding a live stream today. For those of you who are looking forward to tuning in to the Instagram chat that we were going to have with artist Andres Musta yesterday, we canceled it in observation of Blackout Tuesday. Miss you too, Nikki. Oh. And so Nikki Patel is working over at Durham College, helping in support and outreach, working with an SALS. What does that mean again? You might have to remind me. Nikki works and providing a really foundational, important support for students at the college, and any students who might be here today listening or watching, whether you're on placement with us or not. Again, I'll take this opportunity to remind you that there are fantastic resources available through your colleges or your universities. Sometimes it's hard to find them, but the truth is you never know until you ask. So please don't be afraid to reach out and find out what's out there for you and ask for what you need. Sometimes just being courageously vulnerable enough to say, I need this, does this exist, is one entry point into finding the service or the resource or the person that can help you shift things, can help you move forward. And there are some amazing, amazing resources. But yes, let's see. I miss you too. Yeah, so yesterday's live stream. Hello, Lisa. It's good to see you too, Lisa Hart. Welcome, welcome, welcome. The live stream, yes. So if you notice me, so I was going to say, if you notice me bouncing around a bit today, it is definitely has to do with divided attention. Own that right now. And a restless mind wondering about many things, considering many things, as it should be, I think. And trying to find place and space and ways of channeling and holding and examining the aches and pains I might be feeling in response to the pain that I know and I see others experiencing in the world. I'm wondering how can I be of service during this time? So I might, because of my brain being in a whole bunch of little different places right now, I might be a little more scattered than usual. So please bear with me. If you need to tune off or turn off or do your thing, that's okay too. You don't have to stay for the whole chat or the whole thing. But for those of you who did tune in to the live stream Instagram chat, we wanted to honor Blackout Tuesday because more than anything else, the Instagram chats can sometimes feel like they're more than entertainment to me, obviously, but they can feel non-essential. And I never mean, and I would never want to unintentionally draw away attention from what people should be listening to and learning from. And right now, that is something definitely present with the anti-Black racism movement. And people who are literally fighting for their lives or continuing to fight for their lives. That's good to know, Dawn. So Dawn is one of those people, again, when I say you can just tune in and listen or watch, have me on in the background or this on in the background. Yeah, you don't have to say hello. You don't have to join in the chat. But when you do, it's always such a pleasure to know you're here. For me, anyways. How selfish is that? And I think other community members enjoy having opportunities to connect or just have the sense of, okay, you're still out there. Good, right? And I'm so excited. I'm so excited to hear what you've been creating, Dawn. I think maybe one of the things we can do, maybe a little live stream concert in the future. Yes. So again, we've had confirmation from Nikki for every student out there, regardless of what college or university you might be attending, ask, always ask. There's so many resources, and in a lot of cases, underutilized, right? Because we just don't think to ask. We oftentimes struggle on our own and do our best to figure things out as we go. But if anything, I think there's a great lesson that we can take from this week is that there is enormous power and strength in coming together and reaching out to others for support and being able to say, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm going through. We need, like, it's not something that can necessarily be fixed, right? I don't know if any one person can fix another person, but what we can do is witness and learn and question and perhaps even help that other person find perspective. And if there are things that we found to be helpful in our own lives, and I think these resources often are the case, at least we can learn that there are options, that there are things out there we can try. And from my own experience, sometimes that's enough. Just knowing that there are options, that's a kind of freedom, isn't it? Knowing that there's choice, right? Options to doing it on your own, options to fighting it all out by yourself. So Shelley, thank you for honoring that within yourself. Shelley's just saying, just listening, just a little overwhelmed today. I don't think you're alone there. I don't think you're alone. I'll ask, but I'm asking and you don't have to answer, folks. Well, you could say, if you're feeling a little overwhelmed, raise your hand. Yeah. I'm not sure what everyone out there is feeling overwhelmed with. That's, something you may want to share. You may want to keep it to yourself for now, and that's okay. The feeling of being overwhelmed. It's an interesting thing because feeling overwhelmed could be classified as a feeling. And you can also be overwhelmed by feelings. That's one of the reasons I think I'm doing this today. Just filling some circles with color. I think I needed to feel a sense of fluidity. Needed to let a few things get unstuck on their own. But I also wanted to provide some containment for them. Well, thank you, Nikki Patel. That's lovely. Or there's the reaching out and connecting. So there's reaching out for help is one thing. Accepting what is offered is another. I think an exercise in allowing might be something that we can look at today, or at least maybe I'm looking at. Allowing these feelings to emerge and putting them in a place. Using color to represent what I might be feeling, but I don't know if I'm identifying it as it's coming out. I'm just letting it be. Hello, Laura. Welcome, Laura. Yeah, Laura's saying that's how she felt yesterday. Overwhelmed? Yeah? I think it's okay to feel overwhelmed. Jessica, thank you. Oh, Jessica, Mary, love the tri. Now that's a fancy word I'm not familiar with, Jessica. Triquarta? Yeah, that's it. I learn every day, folks. I learn every day. I don't think I pronounced that at all the way it's supposed to be said, but yeah, I guess this is my feelings. I don't have water paper large enough on hand to do what I was hoping to do, so I'm just using some ordinary paper, sketchbook paper. Hey, Carlos, raise his hand. Okay. Annie raising hands. Oh, Shelley missing the daycare kids. Yeah. So the work that we used to do, the things that gave us routine and structure and connection on a daily basis, if those things aren't there right now, the absence of those sparks of joy, stumbling upon joy, the accidental moments of joy that connection with others might give us. Overwhelmed describes too well, says Lisa and Carlos. Yeah. Oh, there's some beautiful stuff happening. I love how people are connecting and supporting one another during these chats. May I rant a little bit more about feeling overwhelmed, folks? Because I've also, I think, one of the things I've been reflecting on is how sometimes it's like when someone comes to the studio for the first time. Hello, Suzanne. And it's not uncommon for someone who's never been there before to walk in and be stunned by the amount of stuff there, whether it's art supplies or sometimes people or sounds, or sometimes the feedback we get from a first visit is that people feel overwhelmed. And um, thanks, guys. Um, and oftentimes, what I'll say to them in that moment is, I think sometimes we feel the need to rush to help um, address that feeling of being overwhelmed, to try and fix it somehow. Uh, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I also think there's enormous value in, hello, Daisy. Hello, hello, hello. Uh, I also think, and Emmett, oh, hello. Wow. Hello, hello. I think there can almost be, there's an enormous value in also knowing, and this, depends on a lot. But if you are in a place where you feel safe, if you are surrounded or perhaps with people that you can, you can lean on or reach out to, if, and everyone's the best judge of their own experiences with this, if the things that are overwhelming you are not things that are an immediate threat to you, for example, right? Things that might hurt you or put you at risk or anyone else around you at risk in any way. If they are feelings that are overwhelming you, sometimes just knowing that you're allowed to sit with those feelings. I'm allowed to sit with those feelings. Those feelings won't be there forever. And I think sometimes we learn from that feeling of being overwhelmed. I think there are certain things in life that are meant, like there's just no two ways around it. They're going to overwhelm us, right? Um, like I think sometimes when we experience grief in our lives, there's no way out of that really. It's kind of going through it. That's how you get to the other side. And things are better on the other side, or maybe not better, but different. They're not always going to feel that intense, right? And of course, knowing that we can reach out for support, that we can, share what we're experiencing with others, question it, explore it a little bit. There are many days at the studio where I will turn to people and just say, why am I feeling this way? Is anyone else feeling this way? Because there's some sort of beautiful thing in being able to name it and recognize it and not feel like it's something we have to figure out all at once. And I think, the feeling of being overwhelmed, depending on what's overwhelming us, right? I'd also want to acknowledge that there's a lot of privilege that comes along with being able to take time to feel that, right? Yeah. Suzanne, I hear you. Suzanne was saying, I hope it mellows out, just so much going on. And that's, it's an interesting thing, like wanting for it to mellow out. I think there's a desire on, if I might name this, and tell me if I'm wrong, because I can name what I've been feeling. It's not COVID-19 right now that is making me feel overwhelmed or causing all these difficult feelings. For me, it's watching people whose lives are already in danger, whose days are already, before COVID-19, full of struggle and violence and fear. To see, that there is some rupture occurring in our world right now. It is not something new, but it is new for many of us who might be observing it for the first time, or the first time in our own lives, or observing it in the way that we're observing it, because it can be everywhere in the media. Predominantly, we seem to see, for me, the things that I've been struggling with. It's even hard to name it, which is a fascinating thing. With the struggles, with the battle within the anti-Black racism movement. The voices being raised again to remind people that Black Lives Matter, the fight to survive for people of color everywhere. This is not new, right? Yeah. What we're seeing in response to the battles happening for the voices being raised is also very terrifying. Speaking for at least, again, myself, and all opinions are my own here. Keep me accountable. Let me know, folks, what's going on. There's also a fear, I think, a natural kind of anxiety when the country we share a border with seems to be run by such a madman, right? Thank you, Nikki. Cool canvases. If you're talking about those little hive things, I can explain those a bit later. And maybe I'll do a little workshop tutorial on those too. I don't want to get too carried away in the conversation about the struggles that are going on in the world, because I am someone who carries enormous privilege as a cisgendered white settler. And I do believe in the principle of that I was taught by my Indigenous community members of nothing without us, about us. Thank you. Thank you for the compliments about the colors. Just going with the flow. So I won't talk about things I have no lived experience in. But I do encourage folks to use this time to reflect. If that feeling of overwhelm, if that pain is coming from witnessing, from seeing, from learning, perhaps for the first time, what's going on, there's an opportunity to make sense out of the feeling of being overwhelmed by educating yourself. And there are folks out there in the community, I'm sure we've all seen different things, different resources that can help us learn. And one thing that can help with those feelings of being overwhelmed is learning more about why we're feeling overwhelmed. Sorry, so Shelley, why are you now? Shelley says, sorry I started this conversation, but I'm not sure, I don't know what you have to be sorry about. And if anything, I think I started this conversation with talking about my feelings. So I'll take that one on. I think there's nothing wrong. And I think several people throughout this thread have already virtually raised their hand about feeling overwhelmed and feeling all the feels. And sometimes we don't know what we're feeling. If you're sorry that you started this conversation because you'd like me to stop talking about it, that's another thing. Just ask, right? But there is nothing, I guess there's nothing to feel shame over in acknowledging what you're feeling. And this is one of those spaces where you can. Another great tool for helping with that feeling of overwhelm, as you probably already know, Shelley, right? Is creating. So there's something about taking action and making meaning of what we're going through. Creating is one of those things. To help process, to help contextualize, to help give us perspective on what we're going through. Never a bad idea. Using the materials you might have on hand. Again, you don't need anything fancy. And again, for folks who might be joining us right now, you're welcome to make art with us in this virtual Hive gathering. You're welcome to not make art. You're welcome to create, but please feel free to use whatever tools or mediums or modalities you have around you. That could be a pencil, it could be a pen, it could be a box of old crayons, some plasticine, a guitar, noodling around on the guitar. Letting ourselves explore those feelings, translate those feelings into something creative, something that doesn't have as much structure or that can mean many different things. Thank you, Emmett, for that. First time seeing the pop-up art studio and finding this a peaceful, safe space so far. Thank you for that. It's always an interesting thing, right? And I think Carlos has a great point there, Shelley, in acknowledging thank you for feeling safe enough to raise the topic. We can't pretend like these things aren't happening in our world, and I think we shouldn't. As Suzanne was saying too, I mean, it's, it's out there, right? Would it be disingenuous for me to come on and not talk about it, or for you not to mention that you're feeling overwhelmed? I think we all here have more in common than we do not. There's common ground that we can use to build, to strengthen ourselves and one another. Yeah, and Suzanne, as far as managing that feeling of overwhelm, wanting to paint something too, just to try and get out this funk, yeah. It doesn't need to be beautiful. She was saying she doesn't need to know how beautiful it'll be, and yeah, who says it has to be beautiful? And I think B is echoing that as well. That's, not all art has to be beautiful. And I don't know if, yeah, that's a whole other conversation, isn't it? About why we try to make it beautiful. And what is beautiful? Beautiful to whom? Right? Who decides that? Yeah, I think beautiful art versus good art, meaningful art. I mean, is that what we're looking for? Something that feels right, that resonates, that speaks to you, that lets something out. That's part of that inner critic conversation that happens at the studio all the time, right? That sense of, well, I'm not an artist, because what we're doing is comparing ourselves to someone else out there in the community or the world who is, or perhaps is making art in the way that we would love to make art. And we compare ourselves to them, and instantly, often before we've even tried, decide that we can't do it. Yeah. I think, Suzanne, definitely prefer feeling like making beautiful things, but not feeling it right now. Yeah. Let's see. So I'll get back to this, but someone asked about the tools that I'm using. I have been using a pen. So I've been using a non-soluble kind of pen or marker here, just because I knew I was going to be using watercolors. Watercolors are one of my go-to things here. Doesn't matter what kind of watercolors you have, any kind of watercolors will work. Dollar store. Sometimes food coloring, if you don't have any watercolors around, you might have food coloring. You can use that to paint with as well. And then I drew some circles. I'm just letting myself fill these circles with color. Each circle might mean something, might speak to something I'm feeling. So where were we? Inner critic, the internal judgments, the prescriptions we make or put upon ourselves. It's deep. That kind of stuff runs deep. And when we're giving the spiel at the studio to newcomers, one of the things we often talk about as we're giving safe space is speaking to that inner critic in a very specific way. So if anything, one of the things we ask people, oh, you know what's interesting? I forgot to mention it at the top of this spiel. But one of the things that's a part of our safe space policy is we ask people to be supportive and encouraging of one another. respectful, negotiate consent, those wonderful things that help us understand one another and navigate, to bring it back to that word that was used at the beginning. And people are always so nice and supportive to others. And when we see the space where we see that safety being broken, the most frequently is with how people work with and talk to themselves. Lovely. And people often think, well, that's a nice thing. Oh, how nice. The inner critic. Talk back to the inner critic. And we will. Like, you let us know if your inner critic is being too loud or too annoying or too obtrusive, and we will talk to it. And we take it very seriously. It's not just a nice or funny, quirky thing we say. We say it because those voices don't often belong to us. They didn't come from us. We weren't born into this world with that voice criticizing us. Those voices come from other places, other spaces. And if we're not careful, or if there's no one around us to help point out that that voice isn't ours, that it's not authentic, and that it's not always helpful, it can get out of hand. And that's the thing that freezes so many of us. We tune into the voices of other things around us and lose sight of our own. And to be mindful too, the conversation here, when we talk about art, it can be anything. Emmett's making a quilt, right? How extraordinary is that, a quilt? Okay, or should I be quiet? It's a surprise for someone. And Dawn making music, right? So here's an interesting. Dawn believes finished art is beautiful as his inner critic, has prevented him from finishing many of his works. I've learned much here, mostly that I'm not alone. I'm glad to hear that. And it's so good to be able to recognize that piece as well. It's an important piece about compassion for ourselves, isn't it? Right? We've all got inner critics. I've got you've heard me say it before. If you've listened to me ever, I've got a choir of them. And they're no joke. Oh my goodness, no joke, right? But when we recognize them, perhaps we begin to take power away from them. We can dialogue with them. He says, take that inner critic, the one that tells me I'm not good enough, and throw it away. Yeah. Oh, I do that all the time. And at the studio, sometimes I will symbolically, usually around this time of year when it's easier because the door to the studio would be open, I will take it and I will throw it out the front door into Simcoe Street traffic. I have no problems with that. And Emmett says, I can relate, sometimes have to ignore my inner critic and push forward. Even though I don't like the end result, I still feel good for finishing your art. Yes, again, part of that thing that Christine Weird first introduced me to, the finished, not perfect. There's no perfection allowed at the living room. And in my life, it's quite obvious there's no perfection allowed either. And what is perfection but an idea where, a way we gauge growth, the idea that we're somehow getting better? We never achieve it. It's impossible to achieve. And I think there is beauty in what if our imperfections, what if those flaws, again, keeping everything within reason, the sense of, particularly in relation to art, right? The sense of, what if our imperfections are the things that really do come from us? What if something that we see in one moment of our life as imperfection is actually something that makes it quite unique and one of a kind, truly from us, that can't be compared to the work or the style or the stories that anyone else is telling? Because in the end, that's what art is. I will stand by this. Art is communicating, it is storytelling, and it comes in so many forms. We all tell our stories in different ways. And the more you understand your own voice, the more you can build a relationship with your own creative voice, not trying to be anyone else, allowing yourself to be influenced, but really listening and questioning and exploring, where does this come from? Where did I, there's also great value in learning by taking that trip and saying, when did I first learn about this part of my creativity? Who taught me this? Where did I see this? Where did I observe this? The legacy in that creation. Even recognizing that there is a story within that, right? Well, Suzanne says, I love the way you think, Mary. Well, I'm glad someone does. For me, sometimes, again, like other folks are feeling, I'm feeling overwhelmed too. Sometimes it's just the way it's going to be. But I think there's great strength in being able to examine where things come from within ourselves. I think there's great value in getting to know what our unique creative voice is, and chances are it might have more to do with the imperfection than we realize. I don't know if any of you are familiar or have never ever known anyone in your life that just taught themselves, or maybe didn't even consciously decide to teach themselves, but just created from the moment they were born. Kids do this, right? And I don't think I've ever seen a work of art created by a child that I've disliked. I think not one of us could turn away from a piece of art created by a child. We are instinctively drawn to it. There's a part of it that we really look into deeply, even though it might just be a stick figure, right? Sorry, just needed some coffee there. Whew, coffee break time. Something about children's art that is just endlessly fascinating for me. And I don't criticize them. I don't say, well, your perspective is inaccurate, or I don't know what else I might say. I can't even imagine. But I think one of the reasons why I'm so drawn to it is because it's so honest. And there are other people that we've seen, people who perhaps just started creating because that's what they loved, and they didn't have others to compare themselves to, or perhaps they were just fearless in whatever place they were. We've seen them create and do extraordinary things. And oftentimes, these things might be called outsider art. They might be called, I don't agree with this, but naive. There's lots of different terms that the fine art world gives to it. But let's remember where the fine art world, what it's a part of, right? It's part of an industry. It's not necessarily about creativity or about art. It's part of an industry. And sometimes those industries care about the individual artist's voices more than others. Sorry, my overwhelming. Did I mention that feeling of overwhelm I'm having is tempered by a kind of angry politicalness? It is. Yeah, there's an industry out there, but it's very different than our own internal creative journey. We don't have to be a part of that industry. You might want to one day, that's okay too, but that is a very separate thing from your creative voice. Yes, right? So Laura Ann Brown, that's why my fridge is covered in other places in our house. Yeah, and if I may, Laura, your little Emily, that human being is astonishing. And I think I like to imagine part of that fearless creating that you see in that little person is guided by the fact that she's got a mom who's pretty freaking awesome and fearless herself. And there is a certain kind of legacy in each of our lives, I imagine, where creativity has been honored in one way or another. I don't know, maybe there's an opportunity, maybe there's an opportunity to reconnect, to remember that voice. I've been spending a lot of time over the last few days tracking the things in my life that I'm not happy about, the things that I want to change. Yeah, and a lot of it, as B is saying, thank you for acknowledging B, has to do with anger. A lot of folks, I think, anger can be a really useful thing. It can consume or it can fuel. I would prefer that it fueled things in my life, and where anger is used as fuel to move things forward, I think we see amazing things happening. It's not always comfortable, it's not always easy, and it shouldn't be comfortable or easy a lot of the times. But it's necessary. And so these last few days, looking at the darker legacies in my own life, tracking them back, educating myself, reminding myself, rewatching, rereading, revisiting things that educate me. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of difficult stuff that I'm still unpacking and still untangling and still unlearning and challenging within myself. But it's, I think, equally important during that to take those opportunities to say, okay, where are the legacies of kindness? Where are the legacies of beauty? Oh, nice, B. Nice quote. Art should afflict the comfortable and comfort the afflicted. Now, if you could track who said that quote and fact check for that for me, that would be great. It is a good quote. The legacies of kindness, the legacies of curiosity, the legacies of compassion. Each one of us in our own lives have had those relationships somewhere, maybe even the tiniest amount. For me, I mean, there are many places. But definitely for me, there was one teacher at school, the kind of person that I'd never met in my life before and would never meet if I wasn't kind of encouraged to go and be with other people that weren't all like me. And this teacher, I think it's fair to say, may have saved my life for a lot of different reasons, right? Yeah. Thank you for double checking that quote, B. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I think it's important for each of us in our own way to, like, and it's okay to honor those legacies as well. So, for example, one of our students, we were talking about the possibility of creating a community cookbook with everyone through the living room, right? As one of the virtual experiences, like a recipe share. And the conversation began to lead, and I'm glad to hear that this is helping, Shelley. I want you to remember, and everyone out there who is listening, all the things, all the different feels that you might be feeling right now, that maybe you've been feeling during this, listening to this. I want to honor your journeys, even though I may not be fully aware of them. I want to thank you for your honesty. I want to thank you for taking the time to reflect and think and consider. And for finding spaces to speak your truth, to give voice to your experiences of self. I think if we all allowed that for one another, the world might be a very different place. So let's start here. Oh, wow. It's made you feel less overwhelmed just knowing they are all here, and I love this pop-up art studio. Oh, I'm glad you love it. I'm glad I came today. I think for those of you who joined at the beginning, there was a moment when I was thinking that I might cancel today. I'm glad I didn't. Yeah, so revisiting Community Cookbook, the legacies of even just thinking about that, and where different traditions and tastes and our favorite meals, where they've come from in our lives, who have shared those with us, the things that we remember perhaps from childhood, perhaps from later on. Like there are little, like the lessons, the things we've learned about ourselves through the lens of other people's experiences, through, when we were in those times in our lives when we were able to listen, when we were able to be present. There's so much there. Feeling, I think, essentially feeling overwhelmed, whether by the difficult things in life or the positive things that might be happening as well. I think it's a part of being human sometimes. And we can make meaning of it and try and be active with it. Or we can take a break and revisit it. We can sit through it, see where it goes, how it changes. We can reach out for help and talk to a friend, lean on the ear of an expert, an elder, a person in our life who provides guidance for us and hope. A very beautiful thing, hope, active. It's about the future, right? There are many things we can do with that feeling of that being overwhelmed. Again, you have options. We all have options, right? Where there are options, there is freedom. The fewer options you have, the less freedom you have. But we can all work together to change that. Suzanne. So Suzanne has a friend who works with migrant workers. Oh yeah, not sure if this is the place to ask, but she made a call out for help on Facebook this morning, looking for work, pants, boots, other things for work, small appliances, things that they could donate. Let's see. To help the poor, the migrant workers who can't get what they need, help what they need. So, yeah. So, are you asking where to reach out to? Mission United, as B has suggested, would be that would be a good resource. If your friend has direct contact with these communities and with the organizations who are employing them, I think it's always worthwhile checking in to see what they need specifically, putting together a list. Sometimes I think, we want to make sure that we're providing what people actually need, and we're asking for the right things. There's a whole world of stuff there as well. So if your friend, if there's something, like if they have that connection and they have that support, you can share it with us. Just to investigate it. Suzanne, I might invite you, if it's possible, if you feel okay with this, investigating it a little bit more and seeing where the call for support is coming from. And then if it's something, that we can share with our community, we can do that. Mission United is a great resource. Caria is another great resource. I mean, a lot of these resources are being directed towards people who live in Durham region right now. So if these migrant workers are working within Durham region, there's definitely something that can be done, even if it at this time is as simple as raising awareness about what they need. If it's a part of the larger picture, perhaps there are other organizations that we can connect folks with, other agencies who might be able to advocate and shine light on what's happening and what is needed. Yeah. Well, I'm not questioning her legitimacy. Just it's good to have, I think, to understand where the call is coming from, who it's coming from, and in order to connect with other resources that can be of benefit. Because again, one of the things that might be, I suppose it's just a bit of fact checking really, so that there's a transparency in what's happening. But please, check into it, share it, and if it's something that we can provide support for, or our community can provide support for, it would be lovely. Oh, Lindsay. Okay, hasn't been to the studio in years. I'm sorry to hear that you've been ill. For the time I spent with all of you imprinted on my heart. Oh, doing mighty work. I so look forward to seeing everyone when the studio, we're all together again. Yeah. I hope the day is soon as well, right? But for now, being here, present with this, present in this way can be pretty powerful as well. And Lindsay, I'm so glad to see that you're here. That's amazing. Yeah, that's you imprinted on our hearts too. What if that? And you know what? And there's been many conversations all over the map here. But I want to touch base with folks who are just joining us now. Thank you for joining us. You're welcome. You are welcome during this time every Wednesday to create alongside us with whatever materials you have, or to simply listen, have us on in the background, perhaps. You're welcome to join in the chat, question us, seek clarification, do what you need to do for your own self-care, for your own understanding, for your own enjoyment. Can't always promise that the conversations are in, we sometimes go to intense places. I like to feel they're always honest places, but I think that's because we're human. And at the studio, it might be a similar thing. But this is also an accountable space. So if you find that we're chatting about or talking about things that do not resonate with your lived experience, please let me know. You can call me out on it here. I'm always happy to be called out and stuff. I'm always happy to learn stuff. You can send me an email or a message afterwards if you want to talk about something specifically. But you are welcome. Everyone is welcome. Everyone is welcome. Yeah. A lot of purple, a lot of red happening in my work today. Interesting. Okay. Let's see, Emmett has a question. How often is the pop-up studio popping up? Is the info on your Facebook page? So every Wednesday here at 2 p.m. You can join us for an hour and a half. Usually we have this. We're hoping to create more opportunities. Look for those coming your way soon where people can come together and create with some of our amazing students and other community members, of course. But this every Wednesday. Every Tuesday we try to do a live stream chat with an artist or maker over on Instagram. So that's at 2 p.m. as well. And it's a half hour to a 45-minute conversation with a creator out there in the community. Sometimes our direct community of Oshawa or Durham region. Sometimes we also reach out and connect with creators living in other places, because now our community can expand. That's one thing that this platform has allowed us to do, is connect with makers and our LivingRoom community art studio members that don't live in Canada even, which is a remarkable thing that blows my mind sometimes. But every Wednesday we're here, and I'll be ranting about something. I don't mean to rant. I don't intend on ranting. It's an element of the studio that I enjoy, and it was an important thing. And as we've become more used to connecting with people virtually on these platforms, because I think one element of this will hang around forever one way or another, because of the feedback that we've had about it, especially for folks who might be struggle with illness, or chronic illness, or differently able, who can't make it to the studio as regularly as they'd wish, or who perhaps moved away but still long for the connections that exist there for them still. I think one way or another we're going to keep an element of this available for folks even after the pandemic. So this has been a good thing in that way. But I'll keep you posted about when the studio will be open again. We will have some community collaboration projects starting up soon, so perhaps this might be a good time to flag those for people. Oh, thank you, Shelley. Oh, thanks for my ranting. One of the reasons why I started the studio was because I didn't really want it to be about me. It's about community. I find it a little bit ironic that now I spend an hour and a half chatting, ranting with people. I know I'm not ranting alone. I know that. Uh, but it's funny. Yes, so community collaborations. And live stream engagements. Next week, next Tuesday, we'll be back for our Instagram chat on Tuesday with Cora Reed, who's the creator of the Black Rose movement and a remarkably gifted singer, songwriter, musician, passionate advocate, anti-Black racism activist, community advocate, a pretty awesome human being. And we'll be chatting with her next Tuesday, so this Tuesday coming up. Pretty soon we'll also be launching our alternative tourism project, or what was called our alternative tourism project, with Danny Crosby's support. And Eric joining us. What? Hello, Eric. So we'll be looking, basically we're going to be looking to connect with people for one project with Danny, Oshawa's 5 priority communities. We need and want to connect with people to hear their stories, their voices, with regards to what living in their communities like, acknowledging the things that they love about their neighborhoods that other people may not see. So stigma sometimes makes it possible to dismiss an entire neighborhood all at once, just because it's, south of here or across there, or, there's so many reasons. But we know these neighborhoods and the people that live in them, and what we see the struggle. We have to acknowledge the struggle, but we also see resiliency, we see beauty, we see joy, we see culture, we see the things that actually make living in a neighborhood interesting and dynamic. And we want to hear about those things from the people in those neighborhoods that may not often have the chance to speak to that. So if you or someone you know lives in a priority neighborhood, and we can explain more about that when the project begins, we're looking for your feedback, and we'd love for you to be involved in this project. So keep an eye on that, launching sometime soon. And if anyone is out there and you want to be involved in this, or perhaps as an advocate, even just helping spread the word with friends or community members, feel free to message the Living Room. I'd love to hear from you. I would love to have people in those communities, connecting in ways that perhaps we can't from the Living Room. Okay, and another project. Well, there's going to be a few, but we're also going to be investigating a mobile studio. And the reason I bring that up is because depending on what things look like in the next little while, it might provide another way for the studio to get out there and connect with people in the community. And I hear people, like I hear you with the studio itself. Laura's saying, I miss walking down to the living room. Yeah, we dropped by the studio to water the plants and pick up some supplies for some folks. And just walking the streets of your neighborhood, I'm sure wherever you live, you see this, and how street life has been affected. It's not just, it's everywhere. When that is a part of life that we're missing out on right now. That connection with other human beings, the ability to drop in and say hi, and yeah, that will come back. We'll just have to hang in and see how long it takes before that can come back, right? But if you're living in a priority neighborhood and you'd like to be a part of helping us share and spread the word on that project, please message me or keep an eye out for that project coming your way soon. How are people doing out there, by the way? If you want to chat or give me an update, please feel free. Let's see. And Nikki Patel did ask about the things behind me. That was a long time ago. So all these little hive pieces. Uh, those we needed to create a background for the studio, and I wanted something that we could also use as a boop, a little pushpin board. We didn't want to order anything online, so we dug into what we have hanging around the house, and we found some of those ceiling tiles that it's kind of like paper pressboard tiles, and they were just sitting there. They weren't doing anything. So we just cut them up into little hives and covered them with fabric. So it's a pretty, if you have those materials at hand, it's a pretty simple and fun thing you can do. So perhaps I'll do a workshop on those in the coming months. And people checking in. Yeah, hanging in there. Hanging in there. So we've got about, 20 minutes left here. We're all in this world together. What are some things that people are doing to help them feel what? What's helping people move forward these days? If you want to share some of your ideas, please feel free. I think I mentioned before, one of the things that's helping me feel active, to take all this stuff I'm feeling and turn it into something that I can actually work with. I have been reading, I have been watching documentaries and movies. I've shared most of them on the Facebook page this Monday and yesterday. If you check it, I encourage you to check the pages out. And if these are documentaries that you haven't seen before, please give it a watch. Give them a watch. One is a CBC documentary called The Skin We're In. Again, I happen to find learning a very empowering thing. So if you haven't seen this documentary, I highly recommend it, by Desmond Cole, a Toronto journalist and author. A remarkable, beautiful, it's only about 1 hour long documentary that really speaks to the heart of what it's like to be a person of color living in Canada. It's free, so you can watch it on YouTube, if you have internet access. The CBC is streaming it. There's another documentary for those of you who have library cards in Durham region, or perhaps in Canada or Ontario. There's a fantastic movie resource called Canopy. Now it's great for a whole bunch of different reasons, but if you are in a space or a place where you can stream digital media through your library, this is a free resource. You get a certain number of movies for free each month, and the documentary that I watched most recently from there was called I'm Not Your Negro, which is created by, sort of informed by the story and the words and the experiences of poet, novelist, playwright, activist, civil rights activist, James Baldwin. It's an extraordinary film in so many ways. And I'm also reading. There's plenty of books I've listed on our Facebook page as well. This past Monday, a lot of them, books that I find enormously helpful. Unsettling the Settler Within, a fantastic resource. And then, So You Want to Talk About Race, which is a really great book about how to lean into these awkward conversations and be a part of making positive change, regardless of what race you are or have been assigned. So let's see what other people are doing to cope and move things forward. Sewing, crocheting, yes. Emmett, I do love that. I love how there's something about those two things. I'm not such a big crocheter, but with sewing, sometimes feeling at a loss, creating something practical feels like a very active and purposeful thing. And I heard you are making a quilt, yes. So that it's a very practical thing. It holds meaning. It's still expressive, but it's something we can use and hold on to. Love it. Zoom calls, Shelley says, making jars to give to people, making cards. That's a really lovely thing to do as well. So creating, like, to make meaning and to help move forward in your day. So that making gifts or things you can send to people or share with people. Those are beautiful gestures of connection and reaching out. And it's taking something where you're at. What I love about it, when I look at it anyway, when I think about it, it's doing something with the intention of sending it out into the world. So it becomes not about you, and it's just a reminder that you're not alone, isn't it, when you're making art for other people. And Shelley says, sorting craft items to donate to the living room when you, thank you. Oh yes, and you have a printer to donate. Wow. I'm looking forward to the day when we can sort some of the donations that might be coming our way. There's a few folks out there who've been doing spring and early summer cleaning. I think we're going to have a lot of cool stuff. And B, yes, making a lot of thank you cards for people. Very grateful for the help I've received lately with your move. I think it's a beautiful thing to express gratitude. I might also invite you to some of the folks that helped you. They helped you because they wanted to. I almost dipped my paintbrush in my coffee. Oh no. The gesture of gratitude is always appreciated, but I also want you to keep in mind that the helping is sometimes a gift to the person who helps as well as the person who is receiving help. Does that make sense? Maybe? And sometimes that's enough, right? Oh, wow. And Laura says, me too, a big tote ready to go. Laura's donations are always fascinating. One day I want to make a museum for Laura to curate of all the things she finds in the world. Oh, well, thank you, Emmett. And, well, thank you for joining our live stream, and hopefully we'll see you back again next Wednesday if you're up to it. Bye for now. What do we have? Yeah, 3:19, so 10 minutes to go. Yeah. Moving forward, making meaning, learning, witnessing, sitting with it, that old term. There are big things happening in the world, and we can't fix them all. We start, I guess, with fixing ourselves, with trying to help ourselves, to do what we need to do to take care of ourselves, which does include reaching out for help if we need it. Yeah. Well, who knows what the future will hold? Who knows what this week will share with us as we move forward? But I, for one, am happy. I'm honored and grateful to be a part of a community of care like this. And I really look forward to creating more space for interesting conversations and dialogue to occur. Right? I look forward to finding more ways for it not to be about me. And if anyone wants to, we've been talking about some interesting, again, some weeks are very light here. Sometimes we dig into stuff a little bit, and I'm not one to shy away from acknowledging the difficult stuff, because I think that's one way we deal with the difficult stuff is by sharing it and shining a light on it. If there are things that people want to talk about, or if there are things that you feel you need to have a little more space for. If you need to reach out to connect after this, please don't hesitate to do so. And I realize too that some folks might be watching this after it has streamed live. So if there are things that come up afterwards as well, please feel free to reach out and connect. I may not always be able to answer right away, but there are ways, like it's worth checking in. And when I do have the opportunity to reply, I will. And if not me, perhaps there's another amazing resource in the community that I can connect folks with. Because we do have a pretty amazing community going on. I also want to thank people for being patient with my brain today. As I try to cope and make meaning with all the things, period. I often wish I could be more eloquent, I'm just me, and that's okay. And of course, there will always be other opportunities to have these conversations. What we're seeing in the world right now, it's not new. It's not going away, but it can change. So I'd like to give permission for these conversations to continue evolving, to make space for them, to give permission for folks to explore what they've been reflecting on, if and when they feel it's appropriate. Because I do believe things change through connection. Things change through learning more about one another and understanding what we can. There's always opportunities for that. It makes it easier to check in with one another as well and hold ourselves accountable. Another piece I'll have to do some reflection on. And that's okay. Guys, thank you so much for joining me today. I think this piece is telling me that I need to go and read up on intersectionality. And reflect on some of the thoughts and lessons there. Always a surprise. So there's 5 minutes left. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you for sitting with all the things you've been feeling today. Thank you for making meaning of them along with me. And I invite you to continue doing that. Feelings are beautiful things. They're tools, I think. I really believe they're there. They're information about where we're at and what we need or what we want more of in our lives. Which is why it's so great to acknowledge when we're having them and give them a name. Well, I'm glad you're doing crafts. Glad you're doing crafts, Shelley. I'll be there with you doing some reading. I'm watching some more documentaries, I think. Filling up. Gotta fill up. Learn a little more. Take care of yourselves out there, okay? And we'll return again for this next Wednesday at 2 p.m. Oh, thank you, Carlos. Yeah, and Carlos honoring everyone else for what they're sharing too. Thank you for being present. I think being present with one another, what an honor, what a privilege to have a community of folks who are willing to do that. People who are hanging in with one another, whether you're chatting and commenting or just listening quietly from wherever you're at. Thank you for being here. And I look forward to seeing you again next Wednesday for our next live stream virtual art studio. And if you can, do tune in on Instagram next Tuesday at 2 p.m. to learn more about Cora and the amazing work that Cora is doing. If you're interested in getting a jump on that, definitely recommend seeking out Cora Reed and her beautiful song called Black Rose. You can download it on her Facebook page, I think. In the meantime, again, thank you. This is the longest goodbye ever. Thank you for being here. Take care of yourselves. And until we can connect and create with one another again in person, I look forward to connecting and creating with you folks online. Okay? Thanks so much, Laura. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Take care of yourselves. Bye.